In the turbulent spiritual sea, endless strong winds blew in the void, blowing everyone's robes loudly. The air was almost solid. Everyone was looking at Jason with shock in their hearts. And those Imperial Spirit Masters who were at the peak of the 8th level were trembling slightly, and their hearts were full of anxiety. Whether Sunan had his own of a quota. Okay, now that everyone knows the purpose of these 9th level low-grade holy level elixirs, I won't say any more nonsense. Now, when your name is called, come up and take away a bottle of elixirs. Claire. When countless people were worried and nervous, and feeling the expressions and emotions of everyone present, Jason spoke directly. Me? Claire was stunned for a moment, then her face showed joy, and she quickly flew forward. Claire, I specially prepared this for you. Jason smiled. Yes, Master. After receiving the first bottle of elixir handed over by Jason, Claire's face was full of excitement. She was not excited that she could advance to the 9th level of low-level Holy Spirit Master, but that the Master could think of her. And was the first to prepare it for myself and felt boundless happiness. This shows that the young Master cares about himself and cares about himself, which is more important to him than the spiritual potion itself. Everyone present looked at Claire with fiery and envious eyes, but they were only envious, but there was no injustice in their hearts. Regardless of her closeness with Jason, her status in the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, or her strength, it is reasonable for Claire to obtain a bottle of 9th level Holy Spiritual Medicine, and everyone has noticed that Jason gave it to her. Claire's bottle was the one he planned to keep. Elder Kevlin. After giving the elixir to Claire, Jason turned his attention to Elder Kevlin again and smiled. Yes, Lord Acting Tower Master. Among the crowd, Elder Kevlin suddenly flew forward. His body was trembling and his face was trying to remain calm. His excited eyes and heavy breathing were all gone. It showed his nervousness and excitement at a glance. No wonder he was excited. In the current Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, Brother Arudi, Cassinus, and Edmiz are all 9th level Holy Spirit Masters. Only he, Kevlin, is still the peak Imperial Spirit Master of the 8th level. Although this is actually nothing, Kevlin, who wants to be strong, is quite concerned about it. Watching Jason, the elder of Sevlin who introduced him into the elixir tower and had always taken good care of him, handed over the elixir in his hand, he couldn't help but think of Gates who fell to protect himself in the place of trial. The Tower Master and Elder Waterfield couldn't help but feel a little sad. Master Shidai Tower. Kevlin said excitedly as he took the elixir, looking up at Jason. Once upon a time, this little guy who he had brought into the Alchemist Tower had become the most eye-catching figure in the entire continent. He was the heir to the Alchemist Tower and the Acting Tower Master, a being that even he looked up to. After Sevlin retreated, many strong men present looked at Jason with fiery eyes again. Master Baptista. Jason called out the name of the third person who was in charge of the palace, Baptista, a gold-type Imperial Spiritual Master at the peak of the 8th level. Palace Master Lothar. The fourth one is Lord Lothar of the Intelligence Hall, a lean but energetic old man who is also a peak gold-type Emperor Spiritualist at the 8th level. Master Pasteur. The fifth one is Master Pasteur of the Core Hall. Jason had also dealt with him when he was in the Core Hall. He was a water-type Imperial Spiritual Master at the peak of the 8th level. Master Alphonsus. The sixth one is Master Alphonsus of the Assessment Hall, a peak 8th level Fire-type Imperial Spiritual Master. It was he who passed the assessment when Jason became a core disciple. Palace Master Gusman. The last one is Palace Master Guzman of the Planting Hall. He is responsible for all the large medicinal fields where elixirs are planted in the entire Elixir Master Tower. He is the 8th level Earth Element Emperor Spiritual Master at the peak. Seeing the last bottle of elixir being taken by the Lord Guzman, the eyes of many powerful men present showed disappointment, especially those of the 8th level peak emperors who did not get the elixir. The powerful Spiritual Master felt even more disappointed. Okay, everyone, take this elixir as soon as possible after you return. Depending on your personal strength and the elixir, it can take as little as 4 or 5 days, as long as 1 or 2 months, before you can advance to the lower level of the 9th level. Holy Spirit Master. Jason said calmly. Yes, Lord Acting Tower Master. Elder Kevlin and others shouted excitedly, carefully putting away the elixir. As for Claire, Jason's eyes fell on Claire again, and he said with a smile, because you are much stronger than them, you can use this 9th level holy elixir at any time. If you can take it, you can advance to the 9th level of low-level Holy Spirit Master. Master, is it okay for Claire to take it now? Claire couldn't help but said. Jason smiled and nodded. For a moment, everyone present had their eyes on Claire, with burning eyes. Until now, they were listening to what Jason was talking about, but the effects of those bottles of 9th level holy elixirs, what exactly happened, no one could see yet. Claire, who received Jason's approval, immediately took the elixir prepared by Jason in front of everyone. Gudong. A slight swallowing sound sounded in everyone's ears. For a moment, everyone looked at Claire. Boom. Under the gaze of countless powerful men in the Elixir Master Tower, Claire's body surface suddenly burst into a ball of blazing flames, and a terrifying aura spread from the inside of Claire's watermark of spreading wings scattered. Claire's body surface bloomed with dazzling red lights. These red lights became more and more powerful, and the terrifying aura spread, making everyone retreat involuntarily. Astonishing auras gradually bloomed from the watermark of spread wings in Claire's body, and about half an hour later they boomed one by one. A terrifying coercion instantly descended from the sky and descended on the world. This pressure contained a unique majesty that made many people present feel depressed and wanted to vomit blood. At the same time, the phantom of a true flaming dragon suddenly rose up in the watermark of spreading wings of Claire's body and appeared in the void, surrounded by mysterious fire laws, representing the law of fire. Infinite fire elemental laws came from all directions and entered Claire's winged watermark crazily. For a time, the entire world became a sea of flames. Under this terrifying flame, even Cassinus and the others all felt the incomparable burning heat and retreated. In terms of the power of promotion, when Claire was promoted, she was even more terrifying than Lanuigusan and Cassinus, which was staggering. Rivers of flame elements washed into Claire's body, and finally, after continuing for an extremely long time. Boom. A pressure that represented the unique force of the 9th level Holy Spirit Master spread in the void and enveloped everyone present. True Dragon Domain. Buzz. The terrifying fire element domain covered the sky and earth under Claire's domain. Many 8th level Emperor spiritual masters suddenly felt the watermark of spreading wings within their bodies. The 8th level Emperor level spiritual power seemed to be dormant and difficult to mobilize at all. Not only them, but even Cassinus and other strong men who had advanced to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master felt extremely strenuous and difficult to mobilize. The feeling of parrying. With Claire in his heart, Jason couldn't help but be surprised. He could feel that Claire's current strength had reached an extremely terrifying level. Even compared to him, she couldn't give in. Buzz. Clea, who had just been promoted to the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master, absorbed the domain into her body's watermark of spreading wings. Master, Claire, I finally have the power to protect you. She murmured in her heart, completely unaware of the surprised and envious looks of countless people around her. Okay, as for the rest of you who didn't get the elixir, you don't have to worry. Jason looked at the many remaining 8th level Emperor spiritual masters and the few 8th level peak Emperor spirits who didn't get the elixir. Master, due to the scarcity of 9th level materials and your strength, we have not obtained the 9th level elixir for the time being. However, this does not mean that we will not get it in the future. I, Jason, promise that as long as you are strong enough to advance to the 9th level, as a low-level Holy Spirit Master, and I have contributed to the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, I, Jason, we'll definitely prepare a 9th level Holy Spiritual Potion so that everyone can reach the 9th level Holy Spirit Master. After hearing Jason's words, everyone was stunned. He was startled, and then his eyes showed a look of ecstasy. Jason's words made their originally lost and depressed hearts become active again, and after Jason's reminder, they suddenly discovered that the truth was exactly what Jason said. The 7 people who received the 7 bottles of spiritual potion that Jason gave them before are all the top 7 among the 8th level peak Imperial Spiritual Masters of the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower in terms of strength. The remaining few who did not receive the spiritual potion, although he is also an Emperor Spirit Master who has reached the peak of the 8th level, but he has either just reached the peak of the 8th level, or has not made any progress since reaching the peak of the 8th level. In terms of real strength, there is still a certain difference between the 7 people who have obtained the spiritual potion. In an instant, Jason's majestic and impartial image was established in the hearts of many powerful people in the Spirit Medicine Master Tower. Now that the preparation is over and the elixir has been distributed, everyone should return to their posts. Finally, the Master of Bispham Tower spoke up. "Farewell, Master of the Tower, farewell, Master Jason." Immediately, many strong men present bid farewell to Bispham and Jason. Obviously, Jason's pressure has been established in their hearts, allowing them to respect came from deep in my heart. And Kevlin and others hurriedly said goodbye. They couldn't wait to return to their mansion and take the elixir to break through to the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master. "Jason, Claire, Lanuagusan, you guys, come with me, I have something important to tell you." After many powerful people left here, the Master of Bispham Tower said to Jason and others made a serious sound, then turned into a stream of light and flew towards the sky. "Do you have something important to tell us?" Jason and the others looked at each other with confusion in their eyes, and then they all flew up and chased the Master of Bispham Tower. From the tone of the Bispham Tower Master, Jason had a vague feeling in his heart that there seemed to be something important, and the Bispham Tower Master wanted to let everyone know about it. In a large hall deep in the Spiritual Medicine Palace, many powerful men from the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower were sitting upright one by one. It was Jason and others who had just returned from the turbulent spiritual sea. The person sitting in the first place is naturally the Master of Bispham Tower, and the person below the Master of Bispham Tower is Jason, followed closely by the 2 deputy Tower Masters of Comoros and Blue Moon Gusen, yet the 3 elders Ridigo, Cassinus, and Edmes, in addition to Claire, Jason's mother Yulia, Father Renaud, and Wayne were also called to the hall. Seeing this scene, Jason felt extremely relieved. Obviously, although his mother Yulia, Father Renaud, and Wayne were not disciples of the Elixir Tower, because of their relationship, the Master of Bispham Tower, he didn't treat him as an outsider. In the main hall, the atmosphere was calm. Everyone had solemn expressions and looked at the Master of Bispham Tower. It was unclear why he called everyone here. "Okay, now that everyone is here, I won't talk nonsense. Jason, this time, I'm calling you here because there is something important related to the future of our Elixir Tower that I need to tell you." After the Master of Spham Tower glanced at the faces of everyone present, he suddenly spoke out. "Jason, do you know why Master Atkinson of the Spiritual Master Tower and the others wanted to ambush and kill me in the mainland trial ground?" Master Bispham Tower suddenly looked at Jason. Jason was stunned and frowned. "Isn't it because Lord Atkinson and the others want to unify the continent, so they want to attack you, Lord Tower Master?" Lord Bispham Tower nodded. "You are right, indeed. There is this reason, but it is not the main reason. You think, even if I am no longer here, in addition to the 4 major forces together with the Spirit Master Tower, there are many forces on the continent, such as McGrady of the Sealand Empire, Leona and others in the City of Dawn are all 9th level high-level Holy Spirit Masters. In addition, there are also the Adventurers Guild and many other forces that have been offended in the mainland trial grounds. Although there are no 9th level high-level Holy Spirit Masters among them, Holy Spirit Masters, but 9th level intermediate and low-level Holy Spirit Masters still exist. Even if I are removed, Atkinson Tower Master and the others cannot control the entire continent. What's more, besides us people on the continent, there are some secret peerless experts, including many 9th level high-level Holy Spirit Masters. It is simply impossible for Atkinson Tower Master and the others to conquer the entire continent. Bispham Tower Master said calmly. The secret of 9th level high-ranking Holy Spirit Master? This aren't there only 9 top forces on the continent? The words of the Master of Bispham Tower immediately shocked Jason and the others. They all raised their heads and looked towards the Master of Bispham Tower. Everyone couldn't believe what the Master of Bispham Tower said. The reason why there are only 9 major forces on the mainland is because only 9 major forces have 9th level high-level Holy Spirit Masters. Although the Adventurers Guild, the 3 major chambers of commerce in the mainland, and some top powerful kingdoms also have 9th level Holy Spirit Masters, they at most, it is only the 9th level intermediate level and cannot become one of the 9 major forces. But now, the Master of Bispham Tower actually said that there are still powerful 9th level advanced Holy Spirit Masters who live in seclusion. This makes Jason and the others feel incredible. What? Are you surprised? If nothing else, didn't you see one not long ago? Bispham said, his eyes falling on Yulia in the crowd. At this moment, everyone was stunned, and Jason was even more enlightened. Yes, Philea, the master of the Tianshan Palace where his mother was a 9th level peak Holy Spirit Master. But in the past, he had never had any contact with her. Before arriving, Jason had never heard of her. Since the Cairo Empire can have the Tianshan Palace, why can't other forces have other hidden forces? There are some strong people like Philea who live in seclusion in various places on the mainland. They may be in an ordinary mountain village, in a certain mountain range on the mainland, or in some forbidden areas. They never come into contact with the outside world and focus on cultivation. They rarely make your name famous on the mainland. Bispham said calmly. Jason nodded. This was not impossible. At this moment, Jason thought of the temple guardian known as Phil's deep in the cloud swamp. With one claw, he could kill the sin of a 9th level senior Holy Spirit Master. The Master was seriously injured. With such strength, even 9th level peak Holy Spirit Masters like Philea and Atkinson Tower Master are probably far from being able to achieve this. And in the depths of the 7-star sea Forbidden Land, in the Water Spirit Palace, there are also terrifying existences like Giras. Although Jason does not know their strength, Jason can feel that they seem to be far beyond the 9th level. The power that a Holy Spirit Master can possess. At this moment, Jason suddenly felt the vastness of the stern continent. Although he was powerful now, he was still far from the strength to stand proudly at the top of the continent. But what does the Master of Bispham Tower mean by saying this to himself at this time? In Jason's doubtful eyes, the Master of Bispham Tower fell directly on Jason. The reason why Master Atkinson and the others are ambushing me and want to kill me is because of my special status as a low-level elixir master prevents me from participating in the upcoming God's birthday. God's birthday? Everyone in the hall frowned, because they had never heard of it before. This phrase. Jason whispered in his mouth. This was not the first time he heard this word. When he first met the Master of Bispham Tower, the Master of Bispham Tower had told him about it. However, at that time, the Master of Bispham Pagoda did not explain it in detail to him. He only said that this God's birthday is the same as the blood trial, which happens once every 100 years, and the blood trial of genius disciples from major forces in the mainland is just for this God's birthday. It is held based on the quota of that day. The day of the God's birth occurs once every 100 years. It only appeared hundreds of years ago. Only strong men who have reached the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master level or above can participate, and its location is the most mysterious among the 7 forbidden areas in the mainland. In the Spiritual Beast Mountain Range. Speaking of this, the Master of Bispham Tower glanced at Claire in the crowd. Everyone, you should know that the theoretical lifespan of a 9th level spiritual master is as long as 1,000 years, and the 10th level spiritual god is a legendary god, immortal. In ancient times, our stern continent was extremely glorious. At that time, not only are 9th level Holy Spirit masters spread across the continent, but there are also many 10th level spiritual masters due to years of accumulation. But later, I don't know how many years ago, an incomparable incident happened in our stern continent. The main battlefield of the tragic battle was deep in the Spirit Beast mountain range. That battle was called the Twilight of the Gods. The cause of the incident has long since disappeared with the passage of time, but it is said that there are a few strong men from other planes came. This was an unprecedented war. It was said that all the strong men on the continent were involved at that time. As a result, except for a few strong men from other planes, they left alive after the war. Our stern continent, almost all the powerful people in the continent have died. According to legend, our stern continent, the Arctic ice sheet in the north of the continent, and the Tianhai continent in the south of the continent are one whole continent. However, it was precisely because of that battle that year that the three of them they separated and became three parts, and the so-called 7 forbidden lands in the mainland were rumored to have been born at that time. Twilight of the Gods? A strong man from another dimension? The Arctic ice sheet, stern continent, and Tianhai continent are originally one? This, the words of the master of Bispham Tower, were like a bombshell, affecting everyone. The heart exploded, shocking everyone. Everyone present knows that in this world, in addition to the stern continent, there are also the Arctic ice field and the Tianhai continent. The Arctic ice field is only the size of one of the 4 continental empires. It is like an island, standing tall. In the endless ocean in the northern part of the continent, Wayne had trained to be a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit master there. On that Arctic ice sheet, there was an empire called the Ice Kingdom. In the endless ocean south of Stern Continent, there is a land called Tianhai Continent. This Tianhai Continent is much larger than the Arctic ice sheet, but it is only 1/5 of the size of Stern Continent. There are also powerful political powers on the continent, but because both are too far away from the Stern Continent, and there are many dangers in the ocean, even an 8th level Emperor spiritual master cannot be said to be able to cross. Therefore, between the 3 continents, during the period, there was basically no contact with each other. Now, hearing the master of Bispham Tower say that these 3 continents were originally one, but were separated during the war that year, Jason and the others were not surprised and shocked. For example, Jason's strength is now comparable to that of a 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit master. With all his strength, he can definitely destroy a city and level a mountain range. However, if he wants to split a continent, it is simply a fantasy. What kind of strength is required? It was beyond Jason's imagination to be able to do this. And the Twilight of the Gods and the powerful aliens from another dimension surprised Jason and the others even more. Jason stood at the top of the continent in his previous life and had never heard of this news. It really shocked him. Yes. The master of Bispham Tower looked at everyone present. In the classics of my spiritual medicine master tower, there is a record that in this world, there is more than just one plane. The one where our stern continent is located, space, is just one of many weak planes. On our stern continent, there are even more powerful planes. Among them, there are as many strong people as clouds. Any one of them, in our stern continent, is a god. Ordinary existences are omnipotent. The war that year was started by them. The master of Bispham Tower looked solemn. Think about it, that powerful alien plane is different from our stern continent. Comparing it to the stern continent, the secret space where our elixir tower is located, or the secret realm of trial and the killing abyss, how is it impossible? The secret realm of trial? The killing abyss? Everyone said. I couldn't help but be stunned. After hearing what the master of Bispham Tower said, in theory, this is really possible. On the stern continent, there are many secret realms in space, such as the secret realm of Lingqi in Chi'er province, the secret realm where the spiritual medicine master's tower is located. These secret realms are like bubbles in the water. The stern continent is water, and those secret realms are just like bubbles in the water. Like a bubble, relying on the stern continent to survive. Since there are these magical, low-level secret realms of space in stern continent, why can't there be a higher plane on stern continent? Compared with it, stern continent is just a bubble. When they thought of this, everyone felt faintly convinced, but for a while, it was still a little hard to accept. Actually, this information is all recorded in a top-secret information left in my spiritual medicine master's tower. At the beginning, I was very skeptical, but since the fault in the ancient times 10,000 years ago, there has been no more change on the continent. Not a single spiritual god has appeared, which makes me wonder where those ancient spiritual gods have gone. And the appearance of the god's birthday hundreds of years ago makes me believe it even more. The god's birthday, in fact, it is more appropriate to call it the battlefield of the gods. Starting hundreds of years ago, every 100 years, a passage will be opened in the Spirit Beast mountain range, one of the 7 forbidden areas in the mainland. By then, the level of the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master will be reached. The strong ones are all able to enter the legendary battlefield of the gods. The Master of Bispham Tower looked at everyone and said calmly, everyone should know something about it. A 9th level Holy Spirit Master wants to advance. Spiritual gods must undergo transformation in the origin of laws, refine the laws of heaven and earth into their own bodies, condense the laws of gods, and form the divine chain of laws to be able to advance to the 10th level of spiritual gods. However, if they want the original laws to transform and condense the power of gods, they must undergo transformation. The law is really too difficult, almost impossible. In ancient times, there were spiritual gods born, but in the past 10,000 years, for some reason, no one has been able to advance to the spiritual god level. However, in addition to comprehending the laws of God, there is another way to become a 10th level spiritual god. That is, usually after the death of a spiritual god, the chain of laws and gods condensed in it will fragment and become many ownerless ones. God's law fragments, a 9th level Holy Spirit Master, can be refined as long as he obtains law fragments with the same attributes as his own. Once the refined law fragments reach a certain level, they will also form a law god chain and advance to the 10th level spirit god. Absorb the fragments of laws after the death of other spiritual gods, and advance to spiritual gods. The battlefield of the gods? The place where many spiritual gods fell in ancient times? What do you mean, tower owner? Everyone looked at the Bispham Tower. The Lord's serious expression suddenly burst into light. Yes, in the battlefield of the gods, there are fragments of the laws of many spiritual gods that fell in the past. Once absorbed, they can be promoted to the 10th level of spiritual gods. The Master of Bispham Tower nodded. On the day of the birth of the god, the reason why there is this name is the day when God was born. So, what you said earlier, Lord Tower Master, about the arrival of powerful men from the alien plane and the battle at Ragnarok is all true. Is this the reason why all the spiritual gods disappeared in the ancient times of our stern continent? Everyone murmured, obviously consuming and absorbing this news. Lord Tower Master, why do those strong men from other planes come to our stern continent and kill all the spiritual masters in our stern continent? Jason immediately expressed doubts. The Master of Bispham Tower looked at Jason. I don't know about this either. Because of the fault that occurred thousands of years ago, the remaining data of our elixir tower only records that incident in bits and pieces. As for other things, I don't know anything either. Jason nodded. The battlefield of the gods has been opened every 100 years since nearly 500 years ago. This time is the 5th time. I have entered it twice before. I can feel that the spiritual medicine master takes more advantage of it than the ordinary spiritual master. The advantages and success rate seem to be greater, but it seems that the advantages are not obvious before reaching the 9th level elixir saint master. Decades ago, I advanced to the 9th level low-level elixir saint master. I think it must be the reason why Master Atkinson wants to get rid of me. Has anyone succeeded? Jason couldn't help but ask. Of course there is. The master of Bispham Tower couldn't help but nodded and said, in the 2 times I entered, I also got several pieces of law fragments. However, because the number was not large and very small, the effect after refining was not good. 100 years ago, when the battlefield of the gods was last opened, the master of the spiritual master Tower Atkinson Tower was a 9th level advanced spiritual master. However, on the birthday of the god, he obtained more than 10 law fragments at once. Not long after coming out of the battlefield of the gods, he was promoted to the 9th level of the peak Holy Spirit Master. The words of the master of Bispham Tower made everyone present couldn't help but be stunned. They did not expect that the reason why Master Atkinson Tower being able to advance to the 9th level of peak Holy Spirit Master was actually due to the absorption of law fragments on the last birthday of God. At this moment, everyone present was ready to move. Although this law fragment was produced after the death of the spiritual god, it was obviously also effective for 9th level Holy Spirit Masters. Who wouldn't want to improve their strength? The battlefield of the gods requires at least a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master to enter. That is, a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master can enter, but seeing the fiery expressions of everyone, the master of Bispham Tower became solemn. He said loudly, there are many dangers in it. My personal suggestion is, don't enter if you don't have the strength of the 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Master. You don't have the strength of the 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Master? Everyone looked at each other. Obviously, everyone present among them, although only the Deputy Tower Master of Comoros, Elder Arudigo, and Yulia are 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Masters, and the rest are only 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Masters. In terms of strength, almost all of them are 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Masters. The strength of the Holy Spirit Master is obviously the reason why the Master of Bispham Tower called himself here instead of calling the elders who are the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master. But Bispham looked at Jason with a serious expression. Jason, in terms of elixir science, you have the highest attainment, reaching the 9th level of elixir master. However, your level of spiritual master is not the same. He is an Emperor Spirit Master at the peak of the 8th level, and he is not even qualified to enter the battlefield of the gods. I hope that in the remaining time, you will not care about anything, practice hard, and strive to advance to the 9th level before the day of the god's birthday. As a Holy Spirit Master of the 9th level, when the time comes, you will lead everyone present on my behalf and enter the battlefield of the gods. With your current strength, after being promoted to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master, you should be able to compete with Holy Lord Strayer and the others. Jason, you must advance to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master as soon as possible. Master Bispham Tower is right. Without you, what's the point of the god's birthday? Jason, if you can't go, if so, I don't want to go either. Everyone in the hall spoke out one after another. What about you, Lord Bispham Tower? Jason frowned, and he keenly sensed the flaw in the main sentence of Bispham Tower. Me? The master of Bispham Tower shook his head. The birthday of the god is usually 2 years after the blood trial, and there is still more than a year left. I think I may not survive that time. By then, the future of our elixir tower depends entirely on you. Although there was a hint of loneliness in the tone of the master of Bispham Tower, there was no fear. Obviously, he had already put his own life and death aside. Lord Tower Master, you will be fine. After hearing the words of the master of Bispham Tower, Lan Yu Gusen and the others' eyes turned red, their expressions were lonely, and their previous excitement disappeared in an instant. Bispham only has 1 year left to live, and everyone present knows it clearly. Wow. In the main hall, Jason suddenly stood up. Lord Tower Master, don't worry, before your lifespan runs out, I will definitely find the legendary water of life to restore your life. Jason spoke firmly. The water of life is a legendary sacred object on the mainland. It can keep people young forever and breeds extremely powerful life force. Jason. However, after hearing Jason's words, the master of Bispham Tower suddenly stood up. Instead of showing any joy, his expression was extremely cold. Jason, I know you are doing it for my own good, and I also believe in your knowledge of elixirs. However, after all, the water of life is just a legendary holy object. No one knows whether it really exists on this continent. In today's world, at the critical moment, I don't want you to waste your time on these illusory things. Your most important goal now is to advance to the 9th level of low-level Holy Spirit Master as soon as possible. After I leave, you can become the pillar of the Spirit Medicine Master Tower and become the leader of all Spirit Masters in the mainland. The backbone of the pharmacists. Bispham looked serious and almost yelled. Faced with life and death and the future of the Elixir Tower, he resolutely chose the latter. With Jason's 9th level Elixir Master's attainments in elixirs, once he is promoted to a 9th level Elixir Master and enters the battlefield of the gods, he will have the best chance of obtaining law fragments to increase his strength again. Otherwise, once Atkinson Tower Master and the others enter the battlefield, if God's battlefield breaks through again, not only the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower, but also the entire continent will be completely destroyed. Yes, Jason, the Tower Master is right. You practice well in the tower, and I will go find the water of life. Lon Yuggusen stood up and spoke out. I'm coming. Cassinus also stood up. It's nonsense, no one is allowed to go, stay with me. Bispham's expression was cold. If Lon Yuggusen and the others went out, they would be in danger of life and death if Master Atkinson and the others knew about it. You all should stop arguing. At this moment, Jason spoke again, his voice was steady and full of unshakable determination. Master Bispham Tower, I know where this water of life is. Moreover, I am not only here to restore your life, but also to advance me to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master. What? Jason, do you know where the water of life is? Lon Yuggusen and the others were all surprised. Jason nodded, and a bright light burst out in his eyes. I once saw it in a book. It is said that the water of life is produced in the Tianhai continent in the south of Stern continent. In the main hall, Jason spoke firmly but looked calm. He is not making nonsense. This water of life is indeed produced in the Tianhai continent in the south of Stern continent. He saw it in a certain book of later generations. However, where does it come from in the Tianhai continent specifically? There is no specific record, but it shows that it is indeed in Tianhai continent. And what he said about the Holy Spirit Master who promoted him to the lower level of the 9th level was not something Jason said to dispel the concerns of the Master of Bispham Tower and the others, but it was something different. The water of life is a sacred object in the mainland. It is actually the material of the 9th level. However, the materials of the 9th level are also divided into high and low. This water of life is the most precious one. Its effect is not only to breed the amazing power of life, can keep people young forever and extend their lifespan. It can also improve the spiritual master's physical strength, make people transcend the ordinary and become a saint, shed mortal bodies and enter the holy realm. It can also transform the spiritual master's body, contains unparalleled amazing spiritual power. Jason is now an Emperor Spiritual Master at the peak of the 8th level. However, because of the peculiarity of the spiritual god technique he cultivates and his attributes that are transformed into the 5 elements, his advancement is more difficult than that of an ordinary spiritual master. Too many ordinary spiritual masters can break through as long as they take the 9th level holy spiritual potion of this attribute and refine the attribute laws in it, but Jason is different. He knows that even if he prepares one of each of the 5 element holy fruits on his body, bottles of 9th level holy level spiritual potions, and then taking them together would not allow him to advance to the 9th level. In terms of law understanding, Jason, who possesses the 4 spiritual beads, is definitely not weak. What he lacks is to achieve a perfect balance of the 5 elements in his body, transform together, and break through the 9th level in one fell swoop. If you want to do this, you must integrate 5 holy fruits of the 5 elements into a bottle of spiritual potion, and prepare a bottle of 9th grade high grade holy level spiritual potion, so that the laws of the 5 elements in it can reach a balance. After taking it, it's possible. The water of life has such an effect that it can combine 5 ninth-level holy fruits with different attributes into a bottle of spiritual potion to achieve a perfect balance. This is why Jason said that the reason why he was looking for the water of life was to advance him to the 9th level of Holy Spirit Master. Tianhai Continent? Jason, is what you said true? In the main hall, Lon Ergusen and others said in surprise. Even the master of the Bispham Tower flashed with light, and his gaze fell on Jason. Jason, which book did you read it from? I am quite familiar with the materials produced on the sea continent that day. To understand, our spiritual medicine master tower actually has a branch on the Tianhai continent, but we have never heard of the existence of water of life. The master of Bispham Tower expressed doubts. What? Our elixir tower is on Tianhai continent, and we have a branch? Now, it was Jason's turn to be surprised. Bispham nodded. Our spiritual medicine master tower aims to spread the science of spiritual medicine, and at the same time search for strange materials and foreign objects in the world. Although the Tianhai continent is extremely far away from the Stern continent, it is rich in products, so our spiritual medicine tower is the medicine master tower also has personnel stationed there. However, in order to prevent the people of Tianhai continent from xenophobia, our members of the medicine master tower, after countless years of development, have completely integrated into it and become a local force in Tianhai continent. It is known as the spiritual medicine master tower, but in fact, it is still a subordinate branch of my spiritual medicine master tower. We communicate every once in a while. Master Bispham Tower, the news is that the water of life comes from the Tianhai continent. It is indeed true. As for why our branch of the Alchemist Tower has never heard of it, I don't know. The ancient book that Jason read was an extremely authoritative book for later generations, like Tai Sui Mu, etc. Many strange spiritual materials are recorded above, and just like practice, there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. Since you are so sure, then Jason, if you stay in the tower to practice well, I will personally go to the Tianhai continent. The master of Bispham Tower frowned and thought for a moment, and then said, Master of the Bispham Tower, let me go. Jason said decisively with a firm expression, Master of the Tower, the situation on the Stern continent is now unstable. Our spiritual medicine master tower, and many other forces as the enemy, and this is the headquarters of our spiritual medicine master tower. There must be super strong people stationed there, and there is no room for failure, so it is best for me to go to this Tianhai continent. After all, for the water of life, with those who are accomplished in elixirs can easily identify it, but others may not be able to distinguish it. It's too dangerous, Jason, you don't understand. In fact, the situation in Tianhai continent is not simpler than our current situation in Stern continent. There are many dangers, and there are many strong people. You are the hope for the future of my spiritual medicine master tower, but we must not make any mistakes. The master of Bispham Tower shook his head. Lord Master of the Tower now, as an ordinary 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Master, it is difficult for me to pose a threat to me, unless it is a super strong person like Holy Master Strier, who is a 9th level senior Holy Spirit Master. I think that day, although there are many powerful people in the sea continent, there should not be many 9th level high-level Holy Spirit Masters, and they may not be my enemies. Even if they are my enemies, I will be careful and will not conflict head-on. Don't worry, I know what's appropriate. Jason said calmly, and before the master of Bispham Tower could continue to speak, he said again, moreover, I am currently stuck at the peak level of the 8th level. Even if I am a latent cultivator, it will take more than a year. You may not be able to advance. You must undergo experience, have an epiphany, or fight life and death to be able to break through. Moreover, Lord Tower Master, if you think about it, if I stay in the Elixir Master Tower timidly because of danger, this little courage none, even if a Holy Spirit Master has advanced to the 9th level, how can he become the next Master of the Alchemist Tower and lead the Alchemist Tower to glory? Listening to Jason's story, the master of Bispham Tower opened his mouth. After a while, he deliberately wanted to refute, but in the end he could only sigh helplessly, but he couldn't say anything. Master Bispham Tower, Jason is right, you stay here, I will accompany him to the Tian High continent. At this moment, Lan Yuigusan, Cassianus and others stood up and resolutely make a sound. No. Jason shook his head, this time I am going alone. I am looking for the water of life. It may not be easy to get things done if there are many people. Lan Yuigusan, everyone, the spirit medicine master tower is in crisis now. At this stage, we must work together to tide over the difficulties. You stay in the spiritual medicine master tower and advance to the 9th level intermediate level as soon as possible. By then, you will be better able to survive on the crisis-ridden battlefield of the gods. No, Jason, you are alone, Renaud and Yulia said with worries on their faces. Father, Mother, I have decided not to say any more. Jason's attitude was very firm. He knew that this trip might be dangerous, but having many people is not necessarily a good thing. Seeing Jason's determined expression, everyone remained silent. They all knew that no one could change Jason's decision. In the main hall, the master of Bispham Tower could only sigh helplessly, looked at Jason, and said softly, since you insist on it, I will no longer advise you. Be more careful along the way. If you encounter an emergency, then retreat immediately. You have to remember that in my heart, whether it is restoring your life or your promotion to the 9th level Holy Spirit Master, it is not as important as you. Only by living can you have a future. Jason nodded with a serious expression. After confirming the next itinerary, Jason was not in a hurry to leave immediately. This trip was related to the life of the master of Bispham Tower, so there must be no mistakes, and Tian High Continent and Stern Continent are tens of thousands of miles apart. The situation in the ocean was unfamiliar to Jason, so all the information in between must be improved. As the saying goes, if the information is complete, things will go much smoother. In the next few days, Jason stayed at Huashan Island, watching the information collected from the Elixir Master Tower, while instructing Lan Yuigusan and the others on elixir science. As for Rongxing and the others, Jason also had great expectations. Now they have all become 8th level intermediate emperor spiritual masters. Jason promised them that once they are promoted to 8th level advanced emperor spiritual masters, they will provide them with 9th level holy elixirs to break through to the 9th level as soon as possible. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Some information about Tian High Continent was also included in the space ring by Jason. He knew that it was time to leave for Tian High Continent when the dawn of the 3rd day emerged from the sky. At that time, without anyone knowing, a violent spatial fluctuation occurred on the outskirts of a dense forest in the middle of the continent, and dozens of figures suddenly appeared in the void. Jason, remember to be careful during this trip. If you encounter danger, don't show off. Protecting yourself is the most important thing. The master of Bispham Tower looked at the 5 Jasons who were ready to go and said in a deep voice. Tian High Continent is located in the south of Stern Continent. Jason and the others need to pass through the entire southern continent and pass through the territory of chaos along the way. Therefore, Renaud, Yulia, Wayne and Claire also happen to be traveling together. Renaud still remembers what the Temple Guardian said when he appeared in the Cloud Swamp and seriously injured the Lord of Sin Scott with one claw. At that time, he had not really received the inheritance of the god-killing Nadim, and he could only wait until he advanced to the 9th level of the Holy Spirit. Only after becoming a master can one be qualified, so Renaud also needs to return to the Cloud Swamp to accept the true inheritance. Looking at the people behind him who were seeing off, Jason took a deep breath and said, Master of Bispham Tower, everyone, take care. I will definitely bring the water of life back before the day of the god's birthday. After falling, Jason no longer hesitated. With a wave of his hand, he turned around suddenly. With a movement of his body, he quickly flew towards the distant sky. In the blink of an eye, the group of people disappeared into the distance. The end. I hope Jason's trip will go well. We are really lucky to have such an heir. Looking at the direction where Jason and his entourage disappeared, the master of Bispham Tower murmured in his heart, with a look in his eyes full of relief. 10 days after Jason and the others left the alchemist tower. In the southern part of the continent, in the territory of Chaos, in the city of Chaos, in the lobby of the Kongsi family mansion. A dark crowd was gathering in the hall at this moment, and everyone's faces were full of excitement. At the front of the hall, there were several figures with terrifying auras sitting on their bodies. It was Jason and his party who had just arrived at the territory of Chaos from the Alchemist Tower. "Master, it's great that you're okay." Down the hall, Archimedes and Loken's eyes were red, their expressions were excited, and their faces were full of joy. Not only them, but also Master Gandalf and Regan in the hall. The clan leader and others were also extremely excited and shed tears after seeing Jason and the others. These days, the continent is turbulent and chaotic. All kinds of bad news are coming from all directions, making everyone in the territory of Chaos panic. Because the territory of Chaos is located at the southernmost tip of the continent, the news is not well informed and can only be conveyed by Loken in the Salem Empire. However, Loken only inquired in the capital of the Salem Empire, and he did not know the news. Not very timely. Therefore, when Loken first learned that Renault was trapped in the Kamikaze Empire's Decker family, it was already a long time later. After getting the news, Loken was immediately anxious and immediately sent the news back to the Chaos leader, and at the same time begged the Gura's family to send someone to rescue. But at that time, the Gura's family was also in a state of depression. The news of Caswell's death made the entire family silent. In addition, the Supreme Elder McGrady had already left the Holy Land. Without his approval, Loken could, no matter how much they begged, the Gura's family refused to send experts to the Kamikaze Empire to rescue Renault. Just when Loken was despairing and preparing to go to the Kamikaze Empire alone, news came out that the 6 Jasons had survived. Then there was the Kamikaze Chaos. Jason killed Radamandes and entered the Kamikaze Empire. A series of news such as the Holy Land of the Wind Empire. After receiving the news, Loken immediately stopped Archimedes and others who were also preparing to organize a trip to the Kamikaze Empire and return to the territory of Chaos, because they believed that the Master would definitely come back if he was alive. Now, they finally waited for Jason's return. Looking at the group of people in front of him, Jason was also filled with emotion. When he left the territory of Chaos and went to the Alchemist Tower to participate in the mainland genius trial, no one knew that such a series of things would happen. Although people on the mainland are panicking, the territory of Chaos, under the leadership of Archimedes, is still developing rapidly. It has annexed the 13 kingdoms of the Southern Territory. The number of powerful people in the territory has developed like a spurt. In addition to the strong 9th-level Holy Spirit masters such as Renault, Yulia, and Wayne, it can be said that today's Chaos territory, in addition to not having 9th-level high-level Holy Spirit masters, is slightly weaker than the 9 major forces. It is strong at its peak. In terms of players, it is no longer weaker than established forces such as the Adventurers Guild, and can already be called the overlord of one side. Looking at Archimedes and Loken in the hall, Jason felt quite pleased. In the more than a year since he left, Archimedes has been promoted from the 8th-level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master to the 8th-level Intermediate level. He is already preparing to attack the 8th-level high-level Emperor Spiritual Master. His strength is improving not slowly, and Luoquan's wood spirit body was even more exaggerated. He actually broke through to the 8th-level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master and hit the 8th-level Peak Imperial Spiritual Master. Jason was a little dumbfounded. You must know that the reason why Jason himself reached the peak of the 8th level directly from the low-level Emperor Spiritual Master of the 8th level in just over a year is because he experienced many life and death battles and absorbed the water spirit beads. However, Luoquan has improved bit by bit with his hard training, which shows his strong talent and hard training. That night, the entire city of Chaos held a lively celebration, and the noise continued for a long time until the second half of the night. Due to time constraints, Jason did not stay in the city of Chaos for long. He only stayed for 3 days before deciding to set off again. 3 days later. Outside the south gate of the city of Chaos, a group of figures exuding an astonishing aura were saying goodbye to each other. Jason, please be careful on this trip. Renault held Jason in his hands, his eyes filled with concern. Jason, come back soon. Yulia also held Jason tightly, her eyes full of reluctance. No, I will go with you, it will be safer. Mother, don't worry, I'll be fine. You should stay here and spend more time with your father. Jason shook his head and said. Immediately, Jason set his sights on Claire again. Claire, you stay here and practice well. The young master will definitely come back as soon as possible. Yes. Claire nodded with firm eyes. Claire, who had been extremely reluctant to let go of Jason in the past, seemed to have become much stronger this time and didn't even cry. Luo Kuan, you can take the bottle of spiritual potion I gave you after I leave. After taking it, you only need to concentrate on practicing for a period of time, and it will help you attack the 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master. Jason looked at Luo Kuan and Archimedes, your bottle of spiritual potion will be able to be taken when you advance to the 8th level Senior Imperial Spiritual Master. I hope that by then, when I come back, you will all be strong. During these 3 days, Jason also found time to come to the deserted land of the Chaos Territory to give Archimedes and Loken 2 bottles of respective 9th level Holy Spirit potions were prepared to help them attack the 9th level Holy Spirit Master. In that case, please don't say goodbye. After saying goodbye to his parents, Claire and Wayne, Jason immediately turned around and flew toward the southwest of the continent. He needed to go all the way from the western edge of the cloud swamp to the endless ocean in the south of the continent, and then headed to the Tianhai continent. Jason, have a good journey. Looking at Jason's retreating back, Renault and others stood silently for a long time. Let's go. Renault said, turned around and walked towards the city of Chaos. After a while, the group of people, led by Renault, returned to the mansion. Okay, everyone, just do whatever you have to do. Renault said calmly. After completely arranging things in the territory of Chaos in the past 2 days, he will return to the death maze and accept the god-killing Nadim inheritance. Hey, where's Claire? At this moment, Yulia suddenly said in surprise. After hearing Yulia's voice, everyone present was stunned, and then they realized that Claire was no longer with everyone at some point. Over the mountain forest on the west side of the cloud swamp, the furious cold wind blew through the mountain forest, and the sound of roaring pines was heard. Hi. At this moment, a black figure, like a bolt of lightning, flashed across the sky and flew towards the south, bringing endless roar. This man was none other than Jason, who was rushing to the sky sea in the south of the mainland. Huh? Suddenly, Jason's flying figure suddenly stopped, and his eyes looked sharply at a certain mountain forest behind him, extremely sharp. Who is your excellency? You have been following me for so long. Come out. Jason held a black heavy sword in his hand, exuding a terrifying aura, and slashed directly at the mountain forest. Boom! Endless spiritual power boiled, and the black heavy sword was like an angry dragon, sweeping everything. In the forest, a fiery red figure suddenly flew out and caught Jason's move. Master, it's me. A crisp voice came, and the fiery red figure stepped back more than 10 meters under Jason's attack, speaking hurriedly. Claire? Why are you here? Jason was stunned. He had sensed that someone had been following him, but he didn't expect that it would be Claire. The next moment, Jason seemed to have thought of something, but his brows suddenly furrowed. Claire, you don't want to go to Tianhai continent with me, do you? Young master. Claire seemed to be thinking. The child who had done something wrong secretly lowered his head under Jason's gaze, put his hands in front of him, and said nervously, I know that if Claire asks you to take me there, you will definitely not be willing, so Claire said, but as she spoke, she suddenly raised her head, with determination in her eyes. Young master, Claire wants to stay with the young master. Claire doesn't want to be separated from the young master. It used to be Claire's strength is too weak. The young master does not take Claire with him, but young master, now that Claire has become stronger, she can protect the young master. Take Claire with you to go to the ghost cage. Anya bit her lip, with a hint of emotion in her eyes. Begging. Jason's heart couldn't help but be touched, and he looked at Claire silently. All along, Claire's motivation to continue practicing hard was to be able to practice with him and always be by his side. Xiaocha, don't be angry with Claire. Since the young master doesn't want to, then Claire is going back. Seeing Jason standing there silently, Claire moved her lips twice. My heart couldn't help but tremble, and then I turned around with difficulty and returned to the original route. Forget it, since we are here, let's go together. A clear voice sounded in Claire's ears. Young master. Claire turned around suddenly, with excitement and joy in her eyes, and her whole body jumped for joy. I knew that the young master was the best, he would not leave Claire alone, he would not. Yes. Seeing Claire's excitement, Jason smiled helplessly. Silly girl, let's go. After that, Jason turned around and started flying again. If Claire was still a peak 8th level Holy Spirit Master, Jason would have never taken her there. But now, Claire has advanced to a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master, and her strength is even better than his own. It's not weak, so Jason doesn't care. Yes. Claire said excitedly, her whole body turned into a stream of fiery red light, and followed closely behind Jason. As the two people flew by quickly, 3 days later, a black ocean appeared in front of them. The salty sea breeze blew over their cheeks, bringing a fishy smell. The Sea of Sky? Jason murmured, looking at the end of the boundless ocean, the continent of sky and sea. Here I come. Jason said silently in his heart, and then he and Claire turned into two streams of light, and instantly streaked across the sea, breaking the sky, disappearing at the end of the ocean. Here is a barren and vast ocean. On the endless sea, huge waves are rolling into the sky, rolling up waves tens of feet high, which is extremely dangerous. The Sea of Sky is an endless ocean between the Stern continent and the Tianhai continent. It is full of dangers, like a natural chasm that separates the two continents and prevents communication and exchanges between the two sides. Here, it is inaccessible and inaccessible. There is no human habitation, only the rolling waves and the crashing waves, showing the horror of nature. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, at this moment, a sharp sound broke through the air, one black and one red, and two streams of light containing a terrifying aura, like lightning, streaking over the sea. The two of them were riding on the waves, traveling through it, almost like meteors chasing the moon, tearing open the void, hundreds of miles in an instant. Wherever it passed, two long dotted lines were drawn out of the void, and the surrounding space was broken. On this inaccessible sea, where no one has been seen all year round, there are actually people on their way. Of these two people, the one flying in front was a young man with a handsome face, long black hair, black pupils, sword-like eyebrows, and starry eyes, carrying a black heavy sword on his back, looking elegant, and next to him, this was the woman wearing a fiery red robe, with short golden hair, is so beautiful that people can't help but feel moved when they see her. These two people were Jason and Claire, who were heading to Tianhai continent. Now, it has been 5 days since the two of them left Stern continent. During these 5 days, the two of them have been on the road without much rest. The Stern continent and the Tianhai continent are separated by countless thousands of miles. There are many dangers along the way. Ordinary spiritual masters cannot cross it at all. Even strong men like Jason and Claire, who have reached the level of 9th level intermediate Holy Spirit Masters, still need extreme strength. Only a long flyby can reach Tianhai continent. In order to reach Tianhai continent as quickly as possible, both Jason and Claire increased their speed to the highest level. In order to increase his speed even more, Jason also began to silently comprehend the art of the void while flying. If a 9th level Holy Spirit Master has not reached the 9th level advanced level, no matter how fast the flying speed is, he will just fly through the space, but once you reach the 9th level, you can directly hide in the void and shuttle through the void at a speed 10 times or 100 times faster. At the beginning, Jason flew with great force. The spiritual energy around him was violently rubbing against the atmosphere. Thunder roared and the void trembled, rippling like a meteor across the sky. But later, with Jason's understanding of space, although Jason could not hide into the void like the 9th level senior Holy Spirit Master, he still had a tacit understanding with the void. In terms of speed, Jason did not improve much, but the movement of his flight became more and more silent, like a black line cutting through the sky. The speed was faster, but the void was no longer broken. As for Claire, it was always like this, like a flaming dragon, unabashedly aura, flying through the waves, and the two of them were like two demon gods, crossing the sky. Although there are few people in the Skyrim Sea, there are not many sea spirit beasts in the ocean. Often some fishermen from the southern port of Stern Continent will encounter attacks from sea spirit beasts when they go out to fish in the offshore sea. And in this deep sea there were many powerful sea spirit beasts among them, but under the terrifying aura released by Jason and Claire, those sea spirit beasts were lurking along the way and did not dare to come out to attack. It is true that Jason and Claire are too strong. The dissipation of the 9th level holy aura, coupled with the faint power of the true dragon contained in Claire's body, makes those spiritual beasts have no courage to attack at all. I can only shiver at the bottom of the sea. Boom. On the 10th day after Jason and Claire entered the Skyrim Sea, suddenly, a majestic and overwhelming aura hit their faces. From a distance, the terrifying sound of the waves was like thousands of sky thunders. The roar sounded in the ears of the two of them. Jason and Claire's flying figures suddenly stopped. Looking from a distance, they saw 100 miles away, the sea was rolling like a storm, roaring and roaring. The endless waves rolled up nearly 100 feet of waves. Looking ahead, the hurricane waves were basically endless, and among those waves, huge whirlpools were constantly rotating and rolling, emitting a terrifying sky power. Waves of water, like sharp swords, pierced the void and stretched across the entire sea. We have finally arrived at the demonic hurricane sea. According to the information from the Alchemist Tower, as long as we pass through the demonic hurricane sea, we can reach the Tianhai continent in a few days. Looking at the terrifying natural wonders in front of him, Jason said. Zhong murmured. This hurricane demon sea is the most dangerous place in the entire Sky Sea. Although the previous section of the sea contains powerful spiritual beasts, as long as there is an ocean-going ship with some 7th level Imperial spiritual masters on board, an Emperor spiritual master of the 8th level can still reach here by sailing for several months as long as he does not encounter an 8th level Emperor level sea spirit beast. But the reason why there is very little communication between the two continents is that the barrier of the Hurricane Demon Sea has isolated almost all ships. Among them, the 8th level Emperor spiritual master has a high probability of dying. Of course, with the strength of Jason and Claire, they were naturally fearless. Above the turbulent sea, the two looked at each other and without any hesitation, they swept into the violent ocean like lightning. Chi! Chi! As soon as the two of them entered the scope of the Hurricane Demon Sea, they felt huge bursts of tearing force coming from all directions. At the same time, there were even more powerful sounds coming from the huge vortex below. There was a terrifying suction force, trying to suck the two of them into it. An ordinary 7th level Emperor spiritual master would have difficulty resisting this suction force, and would be sucked into it and chopped into pieces. Even an 8th level Emperor spiritual master would have to try his best to resist, but for Jason and Kufur Leia, it was nothing. Buzz. In this Hurricane Demon Sea, Jason opened the water space of the water spirit pearl and wrapped it around Claire. The two of them immediately turned into two streams of light again and continued to fly towards the south. One after another, water swords that could easily split open the powerful 7th-level Imperial Spirit Master flew from all directions and entered Jason's water space, but they all instantly turned into puffs of water vapor and disappeared into the air. During the flyby, Jason also felt that under the turbulent sea, there were faint breaths of astonishing air escaping from time to time. Occasionally, there would be huge shadows swimming across the seabed, which was extremely terrifying. Jason knew that these were all sea spirit beasts lurking in this hurricane sea. Most of them were 7th-order Emperor-level sea spirit beasts, and some were even 8th-order Emperor-level sea spirit beasts. Ordinary spirit beasts, anyone who enters it will be subject to fierce attacks, but facing Jason and Claire, these terrifying sea spirit beasts are all lurking and dare not make the slightest move. Occasionally, a sea spirit beast without eyes would try to sneak attack, but it could not keep up with the speed of Jason and Claire. Jason and Claire flew quickly, and a few hours later, they emerged from the most terrifying area of the Hurricane Demon Sea. A calm sea with sparkling blue waves suddenly appeared in front of them. Before, Jason understood that if they were distinguished based on geographical location, the two of them had actually arrived in the waters of Tianhai continent. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 streams of light pierced the sky. 3 days later, a long black line suddenly appeared on the distant sea level. This long line became wider and bigger. Looking from a distance, it is a vast continent. Tianhai continent, have we finally arrived? Jason and Claire looked at each other, a touch of joy flashed in their eyes. After half a month of traveling tirelessly, they finally arrived at the mysterious Tianhai continent. Let's go! 2 streams of light pierced the sky and flew quickly towards the magnificent continent. In the vast sky, the cold wind howled across the sky, bringing endless coldness. Under the impoverished blue sky, Lus rolls, here is a barren plain. I saw densely packed and boundless soldiers, divided into 2 camps and facing each other. There were tens of thousands of people on each side, armed with spears, simple knives, battle axes, giant shields, covered with iron armor, with murderous intent and fighting spirit in the sky. These soldiers are quite weak, most of them are at the level of 1st-order spiritual disciples, and some are at the level of 2nd-order spiritual masters and 3rd-order spiritual masters. In addition, some captains and leaders are 5th-order sections. The spiritual master is a strong man at the level of the 6th-level spiritual master, and the leaders of both sides are several strong men at the level of the 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master, who are facing each other coldly and with murderous intent. Nayers, you only have 2 choices above the team on the right, a middle-aged man in a gray shirt shouted, and the thunderous voice resounded throughout the world, exit the fertile plains and hand over the stone. 5 cities including Rock City, if not, Jilbuka, will definitely wipe out your Neil family. But the answer to him was just a cold snort. Fight if you want. There is no coward in our Neil family. The opponent held a giant axe and wore a fiery red robe, roaring. In that case, Nayers, then you must die. The middle-aged man in grey robe sneered, and swung the sword in his hand, attack. A thunderous voice resounded in the sky. Attack. Another rough voice also shouted. Roar. Kill. Ah. Suddenly, the boundless soldiers from the 2 camps below roared with crazy expressions, waving their weapons in their hands, and attacked each other crazily. This is a war, coming from 2 big families. The loser will be forced out of the fertile plains, lose their position, become impoverished, or even become a refugee. No one is not trying their best, and all kinds of spiritual lights are roaring and roaring. The blood was so high that a large number of soldiers on both sides continued to die. At the same time, in the sky above the wasteland, several powerful 7th-level Imperial spiritual masters from the 2 major families were fighting together like lightning. The various monstrous spiritual powers collided and made a huge roar. This was a powerful battle, compared to the one below. Military battles are even more thrilling, and the victorious side will dominate the entire battlefield. At this moment, the two armies suddenly stopped, and the several powerful 7th-level Imperial Spirit Masters who were fighting also looked up in shock. I saw two figures flying side by side in the sky, and the terrifying aura spread out. It was a majesty that could not be resisted, directly reflected in everyone's soul, making countless soldiers tremble in their hearts. They could not help but dare to resist a little. Of the two figures, one is a black-haired young man carrying a heavy sword, and the other is a beautiful woman wearing a red robe. Under normal circumstances, seeing such a beautiful woman, all these brave warriors in the wilderness would be salivating and excited, but now, everyone present was looking at the two figures in horror. These two people are definitely Emperor-level experts. The leaders of several 7th-level Emperor spiritual masters were all trembling with trembling bodies and pale faces. They looked at the two figures respectfully, for fear of offending them. People are angry. Young master, this should be the 4th batch of battles we have seen today, but this time it is the largest. The two sides combined have almost 100,000 people, and they are led by two 7th-level intermediate Emperor spiritual masters. The red-robed woman glanced at the leaders not far away and said indifferently, "Don't worry about them. Let's get to Ruemu City as soon as possible and inquire about the Bonin family and the Water of Life." The black-haired young man looked indifferently at the several 7th-level Emperor spiritual masters who had stopped fighting. His sharp eyes were piercing. Several people were sweating profusely and their bodies were shaking. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the trembling eyes of countless soldiers, the two of them passed through the battlefield as if they were traveling through an uninhabited land. In a moment, the two figures disappeared into the sky. These two people were Jason and Claire, who had just arrived at Tianhai Continent. At the beginning, Jason and Claire had just arrived at Tianhai Continent. Not knowing where they were, the two people immediately flew south, trying to find someone to ask. The first group of people they saw it was two convoys that were fighting. Jason and Claire immediately came down and stopped the fighting between the two sides. At the same time, they understood their geographical location. This Tianhai Continent is different from the Stern Continent. On the Stern Continent, the territory is mainly occupied by 4 empires, and the rest are many kingdoms and principalities. But this Tianhai Continent is different. The entire Tianhai Continent is divided into 30. Each of the two states covers a huge area. Each state has a main city. There are many cities under its jurisdiction, and the forces are complex and chaotic. The area where Jason and the others are currently located is Yongzhou in the north of Tianhai Continent, and its main city is called Duanmu. Because there are countless miles of ocean between Stern Continent and Tianhai Continent, although the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower has a branch in Tianhai Continent, the exchanges between the two only take place every few decades, and they mainly focus on spiritual materials and potions, so the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower does not know much information about Tianhai Continent. And in just a short moment along the way, Jason saw melee fighting everywhere, ranging from a fight between hundreds of people to a war between tens of thousands of people. It can be seen that the Tianhai Continent is extremely chaotic. Fights often break out between the major forces, and the people's customs are fierce. A few decades are enough for many forces on the entire continent to be purged, cities to change owners, and even the big families that control the big states may change. Therefore, the first thing Jason and the others did when they came here was to go to the main city of Duanmu in Yongzhou to find out about the Elixir Tower branch integrated into the Tianhai Continent, the location of the Bonin family, and the Water of Life. In his previous life, Jason only knew that the Water of Life was produced in Tianhai Continent, but he did not know where it was. "I hope everything goes well on this trip," Jason murmured as he and Claire continued to fly across the sky. Under the rapid speed of Jason and Claire, a moment later, a magnificent city appeared in their sight. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jason and Claire, who were unfamiliar with the place, fell like lightning in a forest outside the city in order to avoid attention, and then walked towards the location of the majestic city. As expected of the main city of Yongzhou in the 32 states of Tianhai continent, the main city of Duanmu is indeed magnificent. Jason couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the Duanmu city in front of him, which looked like a giant wild beast lying down. Master, compared to our city of chaos, you can't give in too much. Claire also said with a smile. Soon, Jason and Claire arrived under the main city of Duanmu. The entire city gate was more than 10 feet high and was made of blue rocks. The surface seemed to be poured with a layer of metal. Under the sunlight, exuding a metallic luster. At the gate of the city, groups of pedestrians were lining up, slowly entering and leaving the city. Although there were many people, under the permission of the city guards, they were in an orderly manner and did not appear crowded at all. However, Jason could see that many of these pedestrians had fierce faces and were holding weapons, which was enough to show the fierceness of the people of Tianhai continent. Duanmu. Jason looked at the two big characters carved above the city gate and murmured. To Jason's relief, the language and characters of this Tianhai continent were almost exactly the same as those of Stern continent, except for the accent. Except for some occasional differences, the differences are basically not big and can be understood completely. 5 spirit coins each. The guard at the city gate glanced at Jason and Claire. After seeing Claire, a flash of surprise suddenly flashed in his eyes. Humph. Claire snorted coldly, and an inexplicable pressure spread out of her body and passed over the guard. The guard's expression suddenly changed. Under the pressure released by Claire, his face turned pale and sweat broke out on his forehead. You two, please come in. The guard said respectfully and turned his head hastily, not daring to look at Claire anymore. Whether it is Stern continent or Tianhai continent, it is the same for any city. The strong always have many rights. Jason and Claire entered Duanmu city directly. Master, where are we going now? Claire asked, looking at the building, whose style was somewhat different from that of Stern continent. First, go to the spiritual materials store and exchange some of the currency here. Jason said. After what happened at the city gate before, Jason also understood that it was absolutely impossible to come to a strange place without money and supplies. When he was on Stern continent, Jason rarely used money. Yes, it is also a gold card that is commonly used by the 4 major spiritual currency banks in the mainland, but in this Tianhai continent, it cannot be used at all. Fortunately, Jason's space ring contains a lot of elixir materials and some elixirs. If you exchange them at will, you can get a sky-high price. After asking 2 passers-by, Jason and Claire arrived at an extremely luxurious and magnificent building in the center of the city. The name of the medicine shop is Spiritual Medicine Pavilion. It is a very ordinary name, but it gives people an indescribable sense of grandeur. The whole building is quite grand and huge. It can be said that it is the most beautiful thing that Jason and the others have seen along the way. It is one of the best elixir shops I have ever seen. However, there is another reason why Jason chose this elixir pavilion. That is, this elixir pavilion is the Elixir Master Tower branch and is run by the Bonin family. There are almost all the main cities in the 32 major states, and they are famous. As soon as he entered the elixir pavilion, a strong medicinal fragrance mixed with countless kinds of medicinal materials hit his face. At the same time, what caught Jason's eyes was an extremely spacious hall filled with many transparent medicines. On the counter, within the counter, various medicinal materials were neatly placed. Jason originally expected that the elixir pavilion should be very popular, with people coming and going, and extremely noisy. However, after entering, Jason discovered that although there were many guests in the elixir pavilion, they were absolutely noisy. It cannot be described by 2 words, prosperous. The hall is divided into a spiritual material area and a potion area. In comparison, there are undoubtedly more people in the potion area. After all, in this world, the vast majority of people are just spiritual masters, not elixir masters. Jason and Claire slowly came to a counter and looked at some elixirs on the counter. The elixirs in this cabinet are all low-grade elixirs. Most of them are only 1 to 3 levels. There are also some 4th and 5th level elixirs. As for the elixirs of 6 levels and above, there are no elixirs. However, Jason, we also know that elixirs of level 6 and above are worth more than $1 million if placed anywhere, and it is impossible to place them randomly on the counter. Inside the counter, a middle-aged steward saw the arrival of the two people, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. He walked up and said, "Two guests, do you know what medicinal materials you need? You guys want to come here, too? Should we buy the elixir?" Jason didn't waste any time and spoke directly. "That's natural. I don't know what kind of elixir you two want to sell. Our elixir pavilion has stores in every state. We guarantee fair prices and no bullying." The middle-aged manager looked up at Jason and Claire. Based on his experience, although the clothes worn by Jason and Claire were not luxurious, the natural temperament allowed the steward to feel that the two were extraordinary, and their tone of voice was particularly respectful. Jason nodded, took out a jade box directly from his body, and handed it to the steward. "This is the Wenling jade box." After seeing the jade box that Jason took out, the steward's eyes immediately condensed. Different elixirs are stored in different boxes according to their grades. This Wenling jade box itself is extremely, the high-end materials that can be stored in it are definitely not ordinary elixirs. The steward carefully opened the jade box handed over by Jason, and a strong and fresh smell suddenly filled the entire hall, completely dispelling the original mild medicinal smell of inferior medicinal materials in the hall. In the jade box, a palm-sized elixir with a green body was lying there quietly. A dense fresh breath was emanating from the elixir, and there were spiritual lights lingering around the elixir. "This fragrance, what kind of elixir is it? Oh my God, I just smell this smell and feel refreshed. What kind of elixir is it?" Countless guests in the hall asked. He was attracted by the elixir in the jade box that Jason took out, with surprise in his eyes. This is morning grass?" The middle-aged manager's eyes widened and he exclaimed, his hands trembling slightly. "Two guests, please wait a moment. I'll ask our boss to come down right away." The middle-aged steward looked at Jason and Claire and spoke quickly with a flushed face. Then he turned his head sharply and faced a clerk on the side said, "Quick, go and call the boss down." The clerk saw the steward's anxious expression and knew that the matter was urgent, so he quickly rushed up the stairs to the side. 7th level dawn grass. "Oh my God," as the middle-aged manager spoke up, countless people in the hall looked at Jason and Claire, their eyes showing extremely fiery emotions. Gaze. Although Tianhai continent is separated from Stern continent by countless thousands of miles, the climate is not much different. Therefore, except for folk customs, and other things, most of the elixirs are available in both continents, but the two continents in terms of the development of spiritual medicine, they are all different. Because of the existence of the spiritual medicine master tower, the science of spiritual medicine on the Stern continent has continued to develop for thousands of years and has reached an extremely peak period. However, on the Tianhai continent, due to years of melee and frequent wars, spiritual medicine has the development of pharmacy is much lower than that of Stern continent. Therefore, in Tianhai continent, the quality of elixir materials can determine the grade and value of a bottle of elixir to a great extent, and can determine the preparation of an elixir. Just like when Augustus went to the Kingdom of Orlando for the first time and wanted to kill Jason and Reno, Jason was only a 3rd-level intermediate spiritual master at that time. Even in terms of technical spiritual medicine, he was only intermediate. Between the 6th-level high level and the 7th-level low level, it is difficult to prepare a 7th-level imperial elixir. However, because of the 8th-level imperial elixir of the ice spirit holy fruit, Jason, who tried his best, successfully prepared it. Received the 7th-level imperial elixir that allowed Wayne to regain his strength. This is the benefit of high-grade elixirs. People flock to them everywhere and go crazy. In the Tianhai continent, due to the small area and the fact that the entire southern part of the continent is a wild swamp, elixir materials are much scarcer than in the Stern continent. Any 7th level imperial elixir is enough to cause there was a sensation, and the auction went up to a high price, and this dawn grass is an extremely rare elixir in the Tianhai continent. It can revive the flesh and white bones of the dead. It can be compared with the cloud swamp that Jason obtained in the territory of chaos. It will inevitably cause shock to countless people present. For a moment, the guests who were in the hall wanting to buy elixirs all looked over with eager eyes. What are the origins of this man and woman? They actually took out the 7th level dawn grass? Could it be from a big family? Although their clothes don't seem to be very good, their temperament does look like them. From a big family. But how can an ordinary big family casually sell 7th level imperial elixirs like dawn grass? Imperial elixirs are treasures in all major families, and it is impossible to sell them. Yes. In the hall, buzzing discussions rang out, and everyone focused their attention on Jason and Claire. They were shocked and couldn't help but guess their identities. A person's temperament can't be faked. Jason and Claire looked like they came from a big family, and they had an indescribable aura about them. Kick. 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 At this moment, the sound of sharp footsteps came from upstairs. Jason looked up and saw a group of richly dressed strong men of different ages walking down the stairs, one after another. I heard that someone is selling morning sun grass. Who is it? Where is it? Where is the morning sun grass? The group of people asked as they walked down the stairs. Their clothes were all extremely luxurious. The aura exuded by each of them is also extraordinary, much nobler than some of the guests in the hall. This elixir pavilion has 3 floors in total. The first floor is just some low-level elixirs and potions, while the second floor is some high-level elixirs and potions. As for the third floor, it is all elixirs. Located inside the pavilion, this group of gorgeously dressed people were obviously the customers who were shopping on the second floor and got the news. When they heard that someone was selling 7th level imperial elixirs in the lobby on the first floor, naturally everyone couldn't hold back and came down to see them. For a moment, Jason and Claire seemed to be rare treasures, being watched by many guests in the hall, making it very lively. Seeing this scene, Jason couldn't help but feel dumb. With his identity, the elixir materials carried in the space ring on his body were naturally extremely rare. This dawn grass was just taken out by him to exchange for some spiritual coins, or was it he selected among the space rings for a while and took out the worst materials, but he did not expect that it would cause such a sensation. But thinking about it carefully, Jason felt relieved. This is a big state in Tianhai continent, with an area less than half that of the territory of chaos. Even in the city of chaos, taking out a 7th level material would be quite overwhelming. Sensational, although Duanmu City is the main city of Yongzhou, it also does not have many 7th level elixirs. Haha, I heard that a distinguished guest came to the door. Please forgive me for being so careless. Just then, a hearty laugh rang out in the hall. Immediately, an old man in a black robe came from upstairs. He stepped down, and behind him was the guy who had just gone up to report. The old man came to the front of Jason and Claire in a few steps, and looked at Jason and Claire calmly, his eyes full of smiles. You too, I'm Brian, the shopkeeper of Duanmu City Spiritual Medicine Pavilion. I don't know your surnames. The old man said with his hands in hand, and the smile on his face was very good-looking. Jason. Jason said calmly, but Claire stood beside Jason without saying a word. Brian looked at the Wenling jade box placed on the counter and said with a smile, it turns out to be Mr. Jason. I heard that Mr. Jason wants to sell the 7th level dawn grass. How about following me upstairs to discuss it in detail? Brian waved his hand and looked at Jason sincerely. Jason nodded. In the hall, many guests could not help but sigh, obviously disappointed that they could not see the transaction. However, this business has its own rules. Treasures like morning grass cannot be sold like cabbage. Talk casually in the hall, and then set the price. Please. Brian immediately took Jason and Claire and prepared to walk up the stairs. Haha, Brian, I heard that someone here sells dawn grass. I wonder who it is? A clear young man's voice came from the gate of the spiritual medicine pavilion. Everyone in the hall turned their heads to look. I saw a young man in his 20s from Yushu Linfeng entering the hall. This young man was wearing a white fur coat and had a rather elegant expression. Behind him, there were several extraordinary entourages, whose status was obviously extremely unusual. As soon as the young man appeared, the hall, which had been a bit noisy with discussions before, suddenly fell silent and became extremely quiet. The eldest son. It turns out that the eldest young master is here. Some people in the hall who maintained their own identities stood up and handed over their hands. Obviously, the identity of the young master in white was extraordinary. The young man nodded to the guests and glanced at Jason and Claire. After seeing Claire, he couldn't help but be stunned. A hint of hidden surprise flashed in his eyes, but soon, he turned his head and set his eyes on the jade box in Jason's hand. At this glance, the young man's eyes burst out with a bright light. Morning grass is the main ingredient of the 7th level Imperial Elixir Dawn Potion. It is also an important auxiliary drug for many 7th level Imperial healing elixirs, and even 2 8th level Emperor elixirs. Morning grass, depending on the year, there are also strong and weak effects. Generally, the morning sun grass has 7 leaves, and the 8-leaf one is a treasure. As for the 9-leaf morning sun grass, it is even more rare. Unexpectedly, today, I can see a legendary 9-leaf morning sun grass. Morning grass. It just so happens that I need a bottle of 7th level Imperial elixir recently, and I am short of this morning grass. The young man in white smiled, turned to Jason, and said with a gentle smile, "This young master, in this way, if you sell this morning grass to me, my Boomer family is the largest elixir family in Yongzhou, and I will never treat you badly. Please give me a price." As soon as the young man appeared, he controlled it in a few words. His words were full of confidence, and his tone and demeanor clearly regarded the morning grass in Jason's hand as his own. Young Master Luo Wen, this young master is selling the morning sun grass in our spiritual medicine pavilion. Doesn't it seem that you are acting against the rules? After hearing the words of the young man in white, Brian's face in the hall could not help but darken, and he spoke coldly. In the hall, the eyes of all the guests showed excitement. It was obvious that there was a lot of excitement. Although the spiritual medicine pavilion is opened by the Boning family, which is very famous in the mainland, the power of the Boning family is in Lingzhou in the middle of the mainland. Moreover, some sources say that in recent years, because of offending that power, Boning the situation of the Ning family is getting worse year by year. The elixir pavilions that were originally opened all over the continent, and even the elixir pavilions in some cities, have been robbed. This has never happened before. The eldest son Luo Wen is the eldest son of the Boomer family, the largest elixir family in Yongzhou. It is said that he is very popular with the leader of the Boomer family. The Boomer family also has a special store in Duanmu City for purchasing elixirs. The Zhenbao Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion, which were responsible for the elixir, had never dealt with each other. Now, these two forces actually clashed over a 7th level Imperial elixir. This made many people present have extraordinary expectations in their hearts. Everyone knows that elixir pavilions are all over the mainland. Although they have brought elixirs to many forces on the mainland, they have also plundered the resources of many local forces. Like the Boomer family, as a local elixir family in Yongzhou, the relationship between the two was not good to begin with. Is it against the rules? In the hall, the young man in white smiled. Rules are set by people. Besides, when buying items, the one with the highest price gets it. Everything else is empty. Let's do this. I'll give you 100 million spiritual coins, sell me your morning grass. The young man in white looked at Jason and said indifferently. Hiss. Many people in the hall couldn't help but gasped, obviously surprised by the price of the young man in white. 100 million spiritual coins is definitely not a small amount. Although 7th level imperial elixirs are priceless treasures, ordinary 7th level imperial elixirs are about the same price. Even if they are obtained at auction, is also like this. Although from what Luowind said before, it is obvious that this dawn grass is not just an ordinary 7th level imperial elixir, but such a price cannot be considered low. 100 million, Pavilion Master Brian, I'm offering 100 million spiritual coins. I don't think you have any objections, right? The young man in white looked at Brian with a faint smile. He knew that the blog to which the spiritual medicine pavilion belongs, the Ning family, has encountered some big troubles recently. They are extremely short of funds and cannot supply elixirs. As a result, the business in the elixir pavilion is also not good. With the ability of Pavilion Master Brian, it is difficult to come up with so many elixirs at once. Funds come. For a moment, everyone in the hall looked at Pavilion Master Brian next to Jason. Obviously, they wanted to see how Master Brian would react. Pavilion Master Brian looked at Luowind coldly, then at the 9-leaf dawn grass in Jason's hand, and said indifferently, Master Jason, I'll pay 150 million. 200 million. Luowind smiled and doubled the price. Wow. There was an uproar in the entire hall, and many people had looks of shock on their faces. Generally, 7th level imperial elixirs are rarely exchanged for spiritual coins when they are sold. They are mostly exchanged for 5th level or 6th level elixirs, or some high-level special items, which can easily cost hundreds of millions of spiritual coins. It can indeed give people a shocking feeling. In the hall, Pavilion Master Brian's expression couldn't help but change. 250 million. Finally, Brian gritted his teeth and made another bid. 300 million. Luowind laughed lightly and spoke again, directly raising the price to 300 million. His tone was casual, as if he didn't care about the 300 million at all. Hearing the price of 300 million, the face of Pavilion Master Brian couldn't help but become a little ugly. Recently, due to family affairs, all the funds in the elixir pavilions in the main cities of the major states on the mainland were transferred there, except for the elixir. For the daily expenses and turnover of the pavilion, all the funds Brian can now use are only a little over 300 million. But this morning grass was too rare, and Brian really didn't want to give it up. What, Pavilion Master Brian, can't you get the money? Rowan said with a smile on his face and disdainful mockery in his eyes. Brian's face was gloomy, he glanced at Rowan, gritted his teeth, and said, 310 million. 310 million? Haha. After hearing Pavilion Master Brian's offer, Luowind couldn't help but smile, his smile full of pride. Master Brian, your elixir pavilion is also a famous shop on the mainland, and the Bonin family is the top power on the mainland. Thinking of being so petty, even if you add 10 million, you have the nerve to open the door. 350 million. Rowan turned his head and looked at Jason, speaking confidently of victory. Brian's face was livid, but he never said a word again. This 9-leaf morning sun grass is extremely rare. 350 million seems like a lot, but once the morning sun grass is successfully prepared into the morning sun potion, the price will definitely not count. What, but Brian, who was short of funds, could not raise the price anymore. Master Jason, to be honest, I am very interested in your morning grass. Unfortunately, I can only increase it to 310 million, but Brian looked at Jason and said sincerely, if you can trust me, I will put the dawn grass away first. After I ask the senior management of our spiritual medicine pavilion for instructions, I believe that our spiritual medicine pavilion is absolutely willing to purchase the dawn grass from the young master at a higher price. Of course, if the young master is not willing, since Mr. Luo, one of the Boomer family, is willing to pay 350 million, the young master can sell it to Mr. Llewellyn. If the transaction is not successful, benevolence and righteousness, I hope that the young master can still sell it next time he has a magical elixir. Give me the spiritual medicine pavilion. Pavilion Master Brian said seriously. Master Brian, you've already lost, why are you talking so much? You can't even afford a 7th level elixir. I think your elixir pavilion should be closed in Dwamu City as soon as possible. Save it's so embarrassing that it makes people laugh out loud. Rowan sneered, then turned his attention to Jason, and even looked at Claire with a smile. Your Excellency, your name is Jason. I wonder how you should call this young lady? Rowan showed a warm smile to Claire and said. His manner was polite and his expression was chic. It was obvious that he was full of confidence in his previous performance in front of Claire. However, in the face of his inquiry, Claire did not look at him at all, and always stood beside Jason, as if Rowan was heir. Being ignored by Claire, Rowan was slightly startled, and then felt a little embarrassed. This was the first time in so many years that he had been treated like this by a woman, and it was also after such a generous act before. However, the more this happened, the more he felt in his heart. The beating becomes more intense every time. I don't know which descendant of a declining family is so poor that he has to sell 7th level imperial elixirs, but he is very elegant and has such a cold demeanor. If he can hold her under his crotch, I don't know what it feels like. Llewellyn felt a little hot in his heart, and a trace of lust flashed deep in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared, and then he waved his hand behind him. Suddenly, one of the several attendants behind him hurriedly took out 4 spirit cards from his body, 3 of which were gold and the other was red, and walked up. Here is 350 million, which can be exchanged directly at any spirit currency bank in the mainland. Rowan smiled and said, and at the same time, he wanted to take the Wenling jade box from Jason's hand. Let me see what is so special about this 9-leaf dawn grass. However, before his hand could touch the jade box in Jason's hand. Bang! The Wenling jade box was closed by Jason. Did I say I wanted to sell it to you? A plain but indifferent voice sounded directly in the hall. Rowan was startled, not only him, but Pavilion Master Brian and others were also stunned. Others in the hall who were watching the excitement were also in an uproar. What does Jason mean? Do you think young Master Llewellyn's price is low? Master Brian, you offered 310 million before, right? With everyone staring blankly, Jason put the jade box in Brian's hand. 310 million, I sold it. This everyone in the hall was stunned. Even Pavilion Master Brian didn't understand what happened and stared blankly at the jade box in his hand. But Rowan's face, which had always been smiling, suddenly turned cold and gloomy at this moment. 310 million, I sold it. When Jason said these words, everyone present was stunned and could hardly believe their ears. For a moment, the entire hall was silent and quiet, and the atmosphere was extremely strange. You know, the eldest son Llewellyn of the Boomer family had previously bid 350 million, but this black-haired young man seemed to not care at all and sold it directly to the cloth of the spiritual medicine pavilion for a price lower than 40 million. Pavilion Master Ryan didn't even look at young Master Llewellyn, which made everyone's minds confused for a moment. Who in this world does business like this? Could it be that this young man is at odds with the Boomer family? Many people are full of speculation and doubts, and at the same time, the expression in their eyes is extremely excited. Obviously, the development of things is getting more and more interesting. How did they know that for Jason, whether it was 310 million or 350 million, it was nothing at all? This morning warm grass was just a ring from his own space in exchange for some spiritual coins. It's just the lowest grade elixir taken out. Sir, what do you mean? In the hall, Rowan's face was gloomy. He looked at Jason with cold eyes, and said coldly. A slap in the face, this is a naked slap in the face. If Jason refused, because the price he offered was not high, Rowan would still be able to accept it even though he was unhappy. However, Jason didn't even pay attention to him and sold it directly to him at a price of 40,000 yuan lower than his own. The Master Brian of the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion seemed to completely treat him as heir, which made Rowan feel angry. Before, he was very proud and appeared in a strong manner. In front of many nobles in Duanmu City, he defeated Master Brian of the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion and obtained the Dawn Grass. He was very high-spirited. However, as Jason finished his words, I was so proud before, but I suddenly became a laughingstock in front of countless nobles in Duanmu City, and my previous strong posture was like a monkey jumping up and down, which Luowen couldn't accept at all. At this moment, everyone's eyes in the entire hall fell on Jason, wanting to see how he would answer. However, Jason didn't even look at Rowan. He just focused his gaze on Pavilion Master Brian, who was holding the morning grass he handed to him, and was completely stunned. What? Doesn't Pavilion Master Brian want this morning dawn grass? Jason said indifferently. Jason's words made Pavilion Master Brian, who was staying there, suddenly come back to his senses. No, Master Jason, please wait a moment and I will prepare the spirit coins right away. Pavilion Master Brian's expression was full of excitement and joy. He didn't understand why Jason rejected Rowan's bid, but the lost and recovered dawn grass made him, the master of the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion, feel ecstatic. As for Rowan, who was gnashing his teeth, Jason completely ignored him. Young Master Luowen, he's actually exhausted today. Those distinguished guests secretly thought in their hearts, but they didn't dare to speak and just watched from the side to see how Luowen dealt with it. Damn it! At this moment, the anger in Rowan's heart completely exploded. How dare he ignore me? Rowan's face was livid and his eyes were fierce. Him, Rowan. The eldest son of the Boomer family, the #1 elixir family in Bazhou, and the future patriarch of the Boomer family. As the #1 elixir family in Ezhou, the Boomer family has great influence in Ezhou. In addition to Loss, the first family that controls Duanmu City, outside of the family, the Boomer family can be regarded as one of the most powerful families in Bazhou, controlling dozens of cities within Bazhou. If the Los family is the emperor in Bazhou and the area around Bazhou, then the Boomer family is a prince. Among the dozens of cities controlled by the Boomer family is the largest. Young Master Luowen is the earthly emperor who controls nearly 10 million people. How noble is such a status? Wherever he goes, he is supported by thousands of people. But just now, in order to suppress the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion, which was the enemy of the Boomer family, he made a strong move and spent a lot of money to buy the morning dawn grass at a price that the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion could not resist. If Jason was not satisfied with the price, he would politely refuse. This Luowen was not so angry, but in public, Jason completely ignored his existence, and instead sold the dawn grass to the Spiritual Medicine Pavilion at a lower price. How could Luowen not become angry? How not to get angry? Once this matter spreads out, where will he put the face of young Master Luowen? It will completely become a laughing matter in the mouths of many powerful people in Bazhou. Wow! Sensing the anger radiating from his young master, the guards behind Rowan took a step forward and stared at Jason coldly with ferocious faces. With such a posture, as long as Rowan gave an order, he would it's about taking action. You brat, what's your attitude when my young master talks to you? One of the thin, dark men, with a fierce look in his eyes, shouted loudly, and a terrible energy was released from his body. The powerful spiritual power was raging freely, and the pressure spread, causing many people and guests around to retreat involuntarily, with horrified expressions on their faces. What a noise! Sensing the aura emanating from the other party, Jason frowned, a flash of light flashed in his eyes, and he was about to take action. He just wanted to come to this elixir pavilion to sell elixirs, and at the same time inquire about the situation in the Bonin family elixir pavilion, but he didn't expect that this Rowan came uninvited, moaning and making so much noise. Jason couldn't help but feel disgusted. With Jason's identity and strength, he didn't care about Rowan at all, no matter how great his background was. However, with the improvement of his strength, Jason's mentality has also become gentler. Unlike when he first entered the spiritual medicine master's tower, he was not as violent as when he first entered the spiritual medicine master's tower. But if this Rowan is ignorant, Jason will not mind taking action to kill him. Erased from this world. However, before Jason could take action, Brian on the side suddenly walked out and stood in front of Jason, fearing that Jason would be harmed. The terrifying spiritual power was also released from his body with an angry expression. "Tamra, what do you want to do? This is my spiritual medicine pavilion, not your boomer family. Do you want to offend my Bonin family? Huh, you want to provoke Bienrich in the main city? The majesty of the city lord?" Brian shouted angrily. The thin, dark man who walked out was Tamra, the protector of the Boomer family, a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master with extraordinary strength and a fierce reputation, while the Master Brian of the spiritual medicine pavilion was just a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master, but the incident happened in the spiritual medicine pavilion, and it was because of the sale of Dawn Grass. Brian had to stand up without hesitation and prevent the other party from harming Jason at all. Moreover, fighting is not allowed in the main city. Even if the matter comes to the head of the first family in Basho and Lord Bienrich of Duanmu City, Brian will not be afraid. Offended your Bonin family? Haha, your Bonin family is about to die itself, why are you still pretending to be here? Tamra, a thin black man, sneered, his aura undiminished, and at the same time he looked at Rowan aside, apparently waiting for his orders. Rowan looked at Brian and Jason with cold eyes, and there was no concealment of murderous intent in his eyes. However, he did not tell Tamra to take action, his expression changed several times, and finally he suppressed the anger in his heart. "Xiong, okay, Brian, I'm sorry for you, but just wait, your elixir pavilion already exists, it won't be long before we have your kid again, hey, hey." Rowan sneered twice and looked at Jason like a poisonous snake. "Let's go." He shouted coldly, turned around and walked out of the spiritual medicine pavilion. Many of his men also looked at Jason and the others fiercely, and hurriedly followed Rowan's footsteps and walked away. Medicine pavilion. There were faint voices of discussion in the hall. Rowan's forbearance surprised many guests. Generally, young people of this age are at the age where they can become arrogant and take action in anger, but they never thought that young Master Luowen could hold back his action when his face was so badly damaged. He was a member of a big family, and he also made many guests, gave it a high look. "Master Jason, I'm sorry for frightening you." Brian frowned as he looked at Rowan's retreating back, and then apologized to Jason. "It doesn't matter." Jason waved his hand with a calm expression. It was obvious that he didn't take the previous matter to heart at all. "Master, those guys are very annoying. Do you want me to kill them all?" Claire, who had been silent all along, suddenly spoke up, and her clear voice sounded in the hall. "Wow!" Claire Jo said, which immediately made all the guests in the hall startled. Their eyes looked at Claire with surprise. What is the origin of this group of men and women? With such a loud tone, Donggue would kill all the other parties. He was the eldest son and heir of the Boomer family. If he was killed, the entire Basho would be shaken and turned upside down. Even if we don't talk about young Master Luo Wen's identity, Protector Na Tamla is also a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master. He can be regarded as a first-class powerhouse in Basho. He killed them all at the first word. What kind of strength is this? But after everyone saw Claire's age, they all smiled and shook their heads. Jason and Claire looked extremely young, only in their 20s. They just thought that Claire was a childish child who didn't know the dangers of the mainland and talked casually. "You too, please let me take the spirit card." Pavilion Master Brian waved his hand to Jason and Claire. Jason nodded, and he and Claire immediately followed Pavilion Master Brian and walked up the stairs. In addition to the spirit card, Jason also had some questions that he wanted to ask Master Brian. After Jason and Claire followed Pavilion Master Brian upstairs, outside the spiritual medicine pavilion, Rowan, who had just walked out, looked coldly at the spiritual medicine pavilion not far away, his eyes full of cold murderous intent. Tamra, do you think that person before was very ignorant? Give him face, shameless. Outside the spiritual medicine pavilion, Rowan looked at the spiritual medicine pavilion not far away with cold eyes and sneered. Voice. Young master, that boy was too ignorant earlier. Do you want me to teach that boy a lesson for you? Tamra immediately stepped forward, her triangular eyes radiating a cold light, and she spoke fiercely. As the protector of the family and the personal bodyguard of the eldest son, he has always been arrogant in Basho, and he has never seen the young master suffer the humiliation he suffered today. Okay, as long as you say this, that kid was in the spiritual medicine pavilion before, and there were too many people around him. Once we took action, many people witnessed it, and we were very wrong. City Lord Bienrich became furious, and the family was also very angry. It's trouble. Rowan had a sneer on his face. Tamra, let's wait in this tea house for that kid to come out. Later, you will ambush nearby and cover your face. As soon as the kid comes out, you will take action. After you succeed, leave the city immediately. No one can find you. Even if someone guesses that it was us and there is no evidence, it doesn't matter at all. Young master is wise. The thin black man said respectfully, with a look on his face. A hint of a sinister smile. By the way, don't kill that woman. Master, I have never seen such a beautiful woman with such temperament. When the time comes, Rowan seemed to have thought of something, and a lewd smile appeared in his eyes. Hee. Tamra also laughed lewdly. Sir, those two guys, why don't you send someone to investigate first? And then, at this moment, a middle-aged man leading the team of guards behind Luowind stepped forward and proposed. Voice. This middle-aged man is the captain of the Boomer family guard team and a 7th-level low-level Imperial spiritual master. He was placed by Rowan's side by the leader of the Boomer family, Quinn. He has always been calm and careful in his work. Rowan turned his head, with a trace of displeasure in his eyes. Abai, you don't need to say more, I have an idea. That boy looks like he is also a child of a certain family, but he is from some big families in Basho. I know almost all the young people, but I have never seen that kid before. I guess he is not from our Basho, and even the 7th-level Imperial elixir Chen O Chao has no choice but to use it, so he probably comes from some small family. The Imperial-level elixir is considered a priceless treasure in the Tianhai continent. Even if a big family is too poor to survive, it will never be willing to sell the 7th-level elixir as a last resort. After all, 7th-level elixirs can be used to make friends with some elixir masters, and they can also be exchanged for powerful elixirs, which are treasures of inheritance. Therefore, Rowan naturally did not take Jason and Claire to heart as they were children of a declining family. Abai sighed in his heart, young master has done well in competing with other families and forces. In a few years, I am afraid that young master will inherit the position of the head of the family. However, young master has been cultivated by the family since he was a child. He has always been at the top and has never felt like the bottom. I have always cared about face. I don't know that compared with certain things, sometimes face is really nothing. However, Abai did not say anything else. After all, if the previous incident was spread, it would not only have an impact on the young master, but also related to the face of the entire Boomer family. And the most important thing is that Shubi also thinks that Master Luowin's observation is correct. Generally speaking, except for some declining small families, no matter how powerful the big family is and how much elixir materials they have, they will not take it. The 7th-level Imperial elixir was sold for money. However, Abai, who was cautious, still asked one of the guards in the team to go out to inquire about the situation of the two people in the elixir pavilion. Come on, let's go to this tea house and wait, Tamra. It'll be up to you later. Rowan sneered. Please rest assured, young master, and wait for the good show. Tamra laughed evilly. Humph, you're trying to show off my face. I'm just taking the courage of a bear. I don't know how to write the word death. Llewellyn snorted coldly, then walked to the tea house with many guards and found a person near the window. He sat down and sipped tea while quietly staring at the spiritual medicine pavilion not far away with a playful smile on his lips. While Rowan was waiting outside for Jason to come out. Master Jason, this spirit card contains 310 million spirit coins. Please keep it. In the reception room on the third floor of the spiritual medicine pavilion, Master Brian handed over a golden spirit card, handed it to Jason's hand respectfully. Jason took the spirit card and put it directly on his body without even looking at it. It was obvious that he had great trust in Brian, and Brian couldn't help but be slightly moved and admired when he saw Jason's actions. The longer he stayed in contact with Jason, the less Brian found himself able to see through the young man in front of him. Judging from the clothes on Jason's body, it seemed that he did not come from a wealthy family, but the vague temperament that appeared made Brian dare not make any small rules, especially in some small details. Brian felt even more extraordinary than Jason. Because he could feel that this Jason didn't seem to care about the dawn grass and the 310 million spirit coins exchanged. His casual demeanor was not pretending at all, but as if he was used to seeing high-grade elixirs. Normally, very natural. This young Master Jason probably comes from a declining family. Finally, Brian defined Jason in his mind. After trading for morning dawn grass, Brian couldn't help but feel good, and he had a casual chat with Jason. By the way, young Master Jason. Brian seemed to have thought of something, and his expression was a little solemn. Young Master is not from Duanmu City, right? If young Master doesn't leave Duanmu City recently, please be more careful, is the eldest son of the Boomer family in Bazhou. The Boomer family is the #1 elixir family in Bazhou. The patriarch of the family, Quinn, is an 8th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master with extraordinary strength. Of course, as a young master, I will not care about those scoundrels, but if you are careful, you will never go wrong. Haha, thank you Master Brian for reminding me. Jason smiled noncommittally. He smiled, then frowned and said, Pavilion Master Brian, I heard that your elixir pavilion is the property of the Bonin family in mainland China. With the strength of the Bonin family, it seems that they won't care about this little Boomer family. How do I feel? In the previous confrontation between Brian and Rowan, Jason clearly felt that Brian was at a disadvantage, which puzzled Jason. In Bisfam, according to the information given to him by the tower owner, the Boning family, which is the branch of the spiritual medicine pavilion, is the dominant one in Tianhai continent. Even if the spiritual medicine pavilion here is just a branch, the situation like before should not happen. From what Rowan said before, it seems that the Bonin family has encountered some trouble. Well, Pavilion Master Brian couldn't help but smile bitterly. To be honest, our Bonin family has indeed encountered some difficulties recently, that's why it's like this. Pavilion Master Brian shook his head but did not say anything more. The specific matter was already a family secret. Although there had been a lot of rumors on the mainland, it was not something that he, the branch Pavilion Master, could comment on at will. Jason nodded and did not continue to ask. Then, he asked Master Brian about the Water of Life. The result was just as Jason imagined. Lord Brian didn't even know what the Water of Life was, so naturally he had never heard of it. After a brief exchange, Jason and Claire came to the entrance of the spiritual medicine pavilion, seeing off Master Brian. In the hall, many guests have not yet left. Even because of what happened before, many guests came here, wanting to see the man who sold the morning warm grass and didn't give young Master Llewellyn any face. The young man couldn't help but make comments after seeing Jason and Claire. Master Brian, please stay. At the door of the hall, Jason cupped his hands towards Brian and smiled. You too, if you have any elixir in the future, please come to my elixir pavilion. I, Brian, will never treat you badly. Brian also knew that he had gotten a big deal earlier, so he was very enthusiastic. Not far from the spiritual medicine pavilion, there is a window on the second floor of a tea house. Make tea with genuine articles. Sir, that kid is out. Suddenly, a guard's voice sounded in Rowan's ears. Rowan hurriedly raised his head and saw Jason and Claire setting up shop at the entrance of the spiritual medicine pavilion not far away. Pavilion Master Ryan walked out slowly after seeing him off. The show is about to come. Rowan's eyes suddenly burst into light. He put down the teacup in his hand, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and stared at Jason and Claire. After walking out of the spiritual medicine pavilion and looking at the flow of people coming and going on the street, Jason let out a breath. Master, where are we going next? Claire glanced at the street and asked softly. Go to the city lord's palace in Dwanmu City and pay a visit to be enriched. Jason muttered. Now they are searching blindly to get news about the water of life. It is best to get information about the water of life from those in the major states. The controller will start there. With their strength and status, if there is really water of life, there will probably be some news. Yeah. Claire nodded. She seemed to want to say something else. At this moment, boom. A powerful spiritual power suddenly fell from the sky. At the same time, a golden stream of light was like a spiritual snake coming out of its hole. The dragon came out of the gorge and shot out suddenly from an alley on the side. It flew towards Jason's location like a ghost. The terrifying golden spiritual power is raging, like a golden ocean, permeating everything. A long sword with a terrifying aura, like the letter spit out by a poisonous snake, penetrates a dazzling brilliance, like a white rainbow penetrating the sun, piercing the void, give Jason a fatal blow.